Victor Okoye stood atop the 40th floor of Titan Towers in Victoria Island, his sharp eyes surveying the Lagos skyline like a lion eyeing its domain. He hadn't inherited power, he had carved it from blood, steel, and fire. From the oil fields of the Niger Delta to the skyscrapers of Echo Atlantic, Titan Industries ruled with ruthless efficiency. Rivals had come and gone, but none had posed a real threat until now. Aether Technologies, a fast-rising tech firm led by the enigmatic and dangerously intelligent Sophia Obasi, was gaining ground in sectors Victor once owned uncontested. Tensions simmered, and war was brewing not just in the boardroom, but in the shadows where secrets are currency. At a high-stakes Lagos business forum hosted at the Oriental Hotel, Victor intended to assert dominance. His speech on Future Forward Africa was a masterclass in calculated charisma. But amidst applause, his gaze drifted across the room and locked onto her. Sophia Obasi. Her name hit him like a punch. Tall, regal, with eyes that held both fire and grace. She was presenting a revolutionary algorithm that could transform data communication. She captivated the room and Victor. It wasn't just attraction. It was fascination. He watched her with both desire and dread. The daughter of his enemy. A woman he could never have, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. Sophia had spent years trying to step out of her father's shadow. Though she bore the Obasi name, she had earned her reputation in Silicon Valley and returned home to build a legacy on her terms. That night at the forum, she noticed the infamous Victor Okoye watching her. Everyone knew him, some feared him, others hated him, but she saw something deeper in his eyes. Not just power, but pain. She was drawn in despite herself. After her presentation, they crossed paths near the lobby. A shared elevator ride, a charged silence, and then unexpected conversation, flirtatious, sharp, and laced with danger. What began as coincidence quickly became intentional. They met again at a private art gallery in Ikoyi, then at a secret jazz lounge in Lekki. They challenged each other intellectually, emotionally. Victor was unlike anyone Sophia had known. Brilliant, brutal, but vulnerable behind the mask. Still, she couldn't ignore the truth. This was the man her father had sworn to destroy. Her family's past was stained by Titan's aggression, and yet here she was, letting her guard down. When Victor finally learned her full name, he froze. Sophia Obasi, he repeated. And just like that, their growing flame turned into forbidden fire. Victor tried to bury the growing desire he felt for Sophia. He buried himself in strategy meetings, acquisition deals, and Titan's aggressive move to poach Aether's lead engineer. But nothing dulled the feeling. Worse, Titan's legal team had uncovered a vulnerability in Aether's patents one Victor could exploit to bankrupt them. Yet he hesitated. For the first time in years, emotion clouded his judgment. Could loving Sophia be softening him? Was he risking the empire he'd built for a woman born into his greatest enemy's house? Meanwhile, Sophia's father grew suspicious. Chuka warned her, "That man's hands are stained. Your uncle trusted Victor once and died a ruined man." Chuka had once co-founded a startup with Victor's father, only to be betrayed. That grudge had grown into a generational feud, but Sophia didn't see a villain in Victor. She saw a man who lived in a fortress of his own making. A man who might be capable of redemption. Torn between loyalty and longing, she knew one thing. If her father ever found out, there would be no forgiveness. Their love became a beautiful lie, midnight meetings in Banana Island, encrypted messages, secret getaways to Calabar's coast. Victor and Sophia were entangled in something that couldn't last. Every moment felt like a stolen heartbeat. But outside their bubble, things were spiraling. Titan Industries was facing a data breach, and signs pointed toward Aether. Victor's board demanded retaliation. Sophia's team, meanwhile, was being harassed by anonymous shell companies, likely funded by Titan. Trust was crumbling, even between them. Sophia confronted Victor at a secluded villa. "Are we just pawns in your game?" she demanded. Victor was hurt. "I've destroyed empires, Sophia, but I've never lied to you." But she wasn't sure. She had found suspicious files on Victor's laptop documents that could end Aether Technologies. Was he planning her father's downfall all along? Or was someone framing him? As they argued, a drone hovered above, taking photos. Their secret was no longer safe, and now someone was watching. Shouts. The scandal broke the next morning. Victor Okoye and Sophia Obasi, forbidden lovers or corporate conspirators, screamed the headlines. Social media exploded. Stocks tumbled. Victor's board called for an emergency meeting, demanding he step down. Chuka disowned Sophia publicly, accusing her of treason. The media turned her into either a spy or a seductress. Sophia tried to explain, but the damage was done. The world wasn't ready for their kind of love, not amidst billions of naira and boardroom bloodshed. Behind the scenes, the real threat emerged. Tunji, Victor's most trusted executive, had orchestrated the leak. He had been working with a foreign investor to dismantle both Titan and Aether and sell off their assets. Using Victor's vulnerability, he had planted the seed of ruin. Now, with both companies destabilized, he prepared to strike. But Victor found out. Betrayal by someone he called brother hurt more than any corporate loss, and now he had to protect not only his company, but Sophia. Victor launched a counterattack. With help from a few loyal allies, he began unmasking the shell companies linked to Tunji. He made a dramatic move at the Nigerian corporate tribunal, presenting evidence of insider sabotage. But the fallout was severe. Shareholders panicked, investors pulled funding. His empire stood on the edge. Sophia, meanwhile, was staying in a modest flat in Surulere, isolated and hunted by tabloids. Yet despite everything, she refused to hate Victor. She still believed in him. Then came a message from her father. A letter. Not a threat, but a plea. Come home, let's fix this, together. Sophia returned to the Obasi estate, where a tense truce was formed. For the first time, Chuka saw his daughter not as an extension of his ambition, but as a woman fighting her own war. Do you love him? He asked quietly. Yes, she replied, enough to lose everything. The truth settled in the room like dust, and in that silence a plan began to form. And Victor and Sophia reunited, not in secrecy but in defiance. At a tech innovations summit hosted by the African Development Consortium, they presented a joint proposal, a new project merging Aether's algorithm with Titan's infrastructure. It was brilliant and risky. Investors were intrigued but wary. You're betting your entire futures on this partnership? One billionaire asked. No, Victor replied. We're betting on each other. But just as they were gaining traction, an anonymous whistleblower submitted fake evidence accusing Sophia of espionage. An arrest warrant was issued. Victor used all his influence to intervene, but Sophia was detained. Images of her in handcuffs dominated the news. Victor stormed into the Minister of Commerce's office and made a threat that would have him barred from politics for life. Let her go, he growled, or I'll make sure every corrupt deal you've signed sees the daylight of court. Sophia was released. Charges were dropped. The public finally began to see the truth. She gave a televised interview with an international journalist, honest, raw, defiant. She spoke not just of love, but of the toxicity of legacy, the burden of being born into power. Her story went viral. Victor, too, shed the CEO persona and began rebuilding Titan with more transparency. He cut toxic contracts, restructured teams, and formed alliances he once deemed beneath him. It was a rebirth. Chuka, watching from afar, realized the war he'd waged all his life had cost him more than money. It had nearly cost him his daughter. He swallowed his pride and extended an olive branch, first to Sophia, then to Victor. We don't have to like each other, he said, but maybe we can stop destroying what we love. The two titans shook hands in the Obasi garden. Peace wasn't easy, but it had begun. Victor and Sophia's joint project, Project Econet, launched successfully. The fusion of artificial intelligence and rural connectivity changed lives across Nigeria and beyond. For once, the battle wasn't for dominance, but for impact. The media hailed them as the couple that changed Africa. But even success didn't guarantee safety. Tunji escaped custody. From Ghana, he was planning a final revenge. He tried to trigger a cyber attack on Project Econet. Sophia discovered it in time. With her team, she tracked the malware and neutralized it. Victor confronted Tunji one last time, this time with federal agents at his side. As Tunji was taken away, he muttered, "You got soft, Victor. That woman made you weak." But Victor only smiled. "She made me better." With enemies gone and the future secure, all that remained was the final chapter. 1 year later, on a cliff overlooking the Obudu Mountains, Victor and Sophia stood before family, friends, and the continent's elite. In a private wedding, they exchanged vows under the Nigerian sun. Victor's mother shed quiet tears. Chuka gave Sophia away. The bitter war that had started with ambition ended in love. Their story had redefined power not as domination, but as partnership. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned gold, Sophia whispered, "Was it worth it?" Victor pulled her close and said, "Every war, every wound. Because I found you." And with that, the lion and the legacy, the empire and the dream, became one. Love, in the end, had conquered all. What's your take on Hearts of Power? Do you believe Victor and Sophia made the right choice, risking everything for love in a world ruled by ambition and betrayal? Can love truly conquer legacy, rivalry, and power? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who was your favorite character? Would you risk it all for love? Don't forget to like, share, and tag someone who loves a good power play romance.